Well, you know it is the controversial debt deal that Victoria's Daniel Andrews struck with China. Called the Belt and Road Initiative Agreement, it ties Victoria to Beijing's push to bankroll infrastructure projects with heavy debt right around the world. But the agreement could be quashed. A new foreign relations bill will allow the Commonwealth to overturn agreements made between states, Australian states, and foreign powers. The Senate's Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee has written to all premiers and chief ministers seeking submissions on the legislation, and they want Daniel Andrews to front up. Tasmanian Senator Eric Abetz is chair of the Senate's Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee. He joins me now from Hobart. So, Senator, you want him to front up to the committee. What sort of questions do you want from the Victorian Premier?
First of all, we would want to have an answer as to what advice did he seek and get from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in the lead up to this. I think we already know the answer to that. Why he then willfully pursued the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, and what did he hope to gain from it, and what did he think it would do for China's very aggressive push with the Belt and Road Initiative to all the other countries where China has tried to implement this. We know that the Belt and Road Initiative has been a debt trap for many countries around the world, and the problem is with a Victorian government in Australia signing up, it gives a cloak of respectability to this terrible initiative. But so, look, we're willing to listen to what the Premier has to say, and today he basically said that he was fully immersed in the COVID situation and therefore wasn't turning his mind to it. Well, if he can only deal with COVID, and that's all he's been dealing with, can I say it's been a pretty terrible effort, because on the COVID issue, spending all his time on it, he's been an absolute abject failure.
He also said too that the Andrews government was using taxpayers' money to get legal advice on your legislation, the Commonwealth legislation, this foreign relations bill. Now, I would have thought the Constitution's pretty clear here as to who has the power to make these agreements and who has the power to override them. Your legislation's obviously belts and braces, but is the Premier trying to, keep this agreement going even if you have this legislation? Is that the plan, do you think?
One would assume that that is the plan. Why else would you seek legal advice on an issue unless you were seeking to oppose it? And the legislation is there for all to see. It's about ensuring that Australia speaks with one voice on the international scene, and we cannot have individual states undermining the national interest, our national integrity and our foreign relations. So I would have thought most premiers and state governments would accept that that is a sensible, proper approach with full constitutional authority. But here we go, the Premier now not only doubling down, trebling down on the Belt and Road Initiative, seeking legal advice that somehow unpick the federal government's proposal.
Just before we go, Senator, you've belled the cat on this Belt and Road Initiative for a long time. There's such little detail, such little transparency about what's actually in the agreement here in Victoria between Victoria and Beijing. Is that a concern to you that we don't actually know what's the price of this deal with Beijing?
Clearly, every Victorian and indeed every Australian is entitled to know what is in the Memorandum of Understanding, what the deal is, what it means for the future, and for any government to seek to hide this sort of information is, I would have thought, out of character with our democracy. But it's the same sort of approach from this Premier, it would seem, in relation to COVID, where he denies the email trail in relation to the offers of assistance from the federal government of our Australian Defence Force. So what comes out of this Premier's mouth is very concerning, and it really does undermine the very fabric of our democracy. And that is why I would be very pleased to have the Premier of Victoria come before our committee and provide us with an explanation.
Well, we will all see if he does. Senator Eric Abetz, thank you for your time.
A pleasure.